Hello, and a very warm welcome to Cultural Communication Confidence with me, Victoria Reynoldson, and a very warm welcome to this latest episode all about key blockers to communication confidence. So, let me start today's episode by asking you, do you feel under pressure and stress to speak at the right level? Are you somebody who worries about how you sound and come across? And are you concerned about how you are seen and heard, how your visibility is? I often meet international executives who are on their journey to the next level, and they have concerns about their communication confidence. They feel blocked. They understand that they are talented and expert and knowledgeable at what they do. They are technically fantastic. And yet, when it comes to moving up, whether that's about promotion or moving into a new role, or even potentially changing direction, there is a block when it comes to communication confidence. And it comes up when it's least needed, and it's something that can be quite hard to move through. It impacts how people speak up and share their value. It impacts how you handle the conversations, both the positive conversations and the challenging ones. And it also comes up particularly in global contexts when you're working with people all over the world, perhaps in virtual teams, and working with people from many different cultures. These are things that come up regularly. So I wonder whether this is a challenge you are experiencing as well. And imagine if you could speak in a way that really communicated confidently who you are and what you do. Imagine if you could really amplify and elevate your communication skills, that you were speaking at that leadership level for working in your global team. Well, in today's episode, I'm going to describe some of the most common blockers that I see with the clients that I work with. And then, really importantly, I'm going to talk about the strategies that I think can help when moving through these blockers. So, first of all, the blockers, and let's see whether you identify with any of these. So, the first blocker is that you label and you judge yourself. So, this is really about self-criticism. And I sometimes find that I have clients who talk about, I'm not a great communicator. I'm not great at doing this. And they label themselves as in a negative way. And clearly that isn't very helpful. In fact, it gives us that doubt in our mind. It tells our brain, literally, this is what we believe about ourselves. And even if we think that dialogue is internal, we project that in some way to the external world. So others will feel that about you as well. This is really classic imposter syndrome, and it is something that comes up no matter what the level is. In fact, even with very senior directors that I've worked with, it comes up still. So that's the first blocker. The second blocker, which is kind of related, is the perfectionism trap. And by the way, I recognize this in myself as well. It is often something that we have grown up with in our education, that we're always attaining and we're always wanting to strive to be the best. Now, there's nothing wrong with striving to be the best. However, striving to be perfect is a trap, because we cannot be perfect all the time, every time. And when we fail to reach that high standard, we feel like we failed. We feel like we haven't achieved it. So this kind of perfectionism trap expresses itself with the clients that I work with, because They feel like they should already be at the level where they can communicate confidently. Perhaps they've already been promoted and they feel like they should be able to do this, but they're really kind of not sure where to go and they're not exactly sure how to move through this. Now, related to this is the third blocker, which is comparing yourself to others. It feels like this is a lonely path and that others seem to be so good with their communication confidence and that they have somehow found their way through. However, everybody goes on their own journey with the ups and the downs. So even if you see the most confident speaker, even if you look at the TED speakers and say, wow, they are amazing, they are. And they have also been on their own journeys, which means that they have had their bad days. They've had their moments when they've doubted themselves and got caught up in perfectionism. So we all go on our own journeys. And what's important about that is we can all improve, we can all learn every single day. And remember, connected to this, that excitement and nervousness are two sides of the same feeling. What do I mean? Well, if you think about physically where you feel excitement and where you feel nervousness, it often expresses itself in the same place in the body. For me, that's around my stomach. That's where I feel that. If you consider that excitement is the positive expression of this feeling and that nervousness is the negative expression of it, then actually you can see that it really is all the same idea. And actually we can use those nerves to help us to perform better if we consider it as excitement. And then the final blocker, which is something that occasionally comes up for people, is about avoidance. This is where people have labeled themselves as not being great communicators. They avoid the situations or they avoid putting themselves forward and speaking up and sharing their brilliant potential with the team, with the company. And it's such a shame because they're holding themselves back and not really maximizing what they could do, not fulfilling their potential. So really, it's about avoidance rather than setting the intention to really work on this, develop the skill set, and make sure that they can really maximize what they do in the world. So these are the blockers. And maybe as I was speaking about these, you recognize some of these in yourself. Now let's move into the more positive part of this, which is about the strategies. What can we do to move through some of these blockers and really help us to move past them? So first of all, one of the first things I do with every single client is ask them, have you got your goal identified? Do you know what it is that you really want to achieve with your communication confidence? Now, what I mean by this is that there's a disconnection sometimes between understanding the career goal, but not really understanding how communication helps with that. So get really specific. How does developing your communication confidence help you in your current moment in your career? And how will it help you in your future career? How is it going to enable you to reach the next level? So that's really important. Identify your goal. From there, we can move into visualization. Now, this is a confidence technique, which is really imagining the best possible outcome for yourself in a situation. So it particularly works when you imagine a specific scenario, like a presentation or a very important meeting that you need to do. And what it asks you to do is, I ask my clients to close their eyes and imagine a future event. Imagine themselves into that event with it going absolutely how they want it to go. And I ask them to really observe themselves almost as an outsider. How are they standing or sitting? How is it they are looking to others and appearing? How do they sound? What does their voice sound like? And equally to observe in that visualization, how others are reacting to them. Now, this is important because if we can visualize that success and imagine the best possible outcome, this is incredibly motivating, and this gives us a real goal to aim towards. Now, connected to this is also getting rid of some of the doubts. And so the third strategy is to get an objective view. Now, objective view means that you ask for feedback. We're often quite critical of ourselves, and the voice in our head tells us that we haven't done a great job, that we haven't achieved our perfect standard. So it can be really hard to get clear about what you have done well and what specific areas to improve. So I'm a great believer in getting an objective view on your performance in your communication, whatever that looks like. So whether you do your presentations, how you lead your meetings, how you come across to your senior stakeholders, this is really important to understand. So get that feedback and really use that to help you understand not only what you need to improve, but also where you're doing well already. Sometimes we forget to pause and check, actually, this is where I'm doing well. And then finally, I have a great belief and philosophy, which is practice makes confidence. Now, the phrase is usually practice makes perfect, but as you can guess, that isn't something I buy into. I'm a great believer that the more we practice, the more confident we can feel. We can believe in ourselves. We can believe in our skills, particularly if we get that feedback. And perfectionism is really not the goal here. Instead, I think it's much better to think about it as communication agility. We want to have that flexibility to communicate in a variety of ways, to handle what comes up, the challenging questions, and to be really present in the moment so that we can adapt ourselves. So there you go. We've talked about the blockers and we've talked about the strategies. Let me ask you some reflection questions now. So which of these particular blockers do you identify with most? Which one is holding you back? And which of those strategies do you feel is going to have the greatest impact for moving through that blocker? And then finally, what is your next step? I'm a great believer in taking action. So I really encourage you to identify what is that key action you're going to take after listening to today's episode. Now, if you are a global executive and you're experiencing these challenges, these blockers with your communication confidence, I want to tell you about a new program that I have created, which I am inviting people into to apply to be part of right now. This particular program, Global Executive Communication, is all about helping individuals to speak up confidently and share their value, their talent, their expertise. It's also about developing cultural intelligence to navigate those diverse teams that people are leading and also part of. And then finally, it's about handling the challenging and difficult conversations and internal politics that can come up. This particular program is a unique blend of coaching, training, and mentoring. And we're going to be working together across an individual program for 6 months. So this is something that I'm inviting people to apply to now. And I'm looking for people, particularly global executives, who are looking to really boost their communication confidence, but also understand how to navigate culturally diverse teams and handle those difficult conversations, all with the objective of amplifying and elevating your communication for the next level, for the next promotion, or the next job role. And of course, the future career as well. So if that sounds like that's you, I'm looking for those people that I think will be a good match to this and I think will get the best results from this program. So feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn or via my links in the show notes, and I'd love to hear from you. And also to say, just at the end of this podcast episode, that I'm incredibly grateful to everybody who listens to these episodes. And in fact, we've almost been running this podcast now for about 9 months, which is amazing. I would love to know what you find valuable about this podcast. And if you do get value, that you tell me. So I love to hear your stories and your feedback, but also that you share this with somebody else so that they can benefit. This really lights me up when I can share as much value as possible. And it really means a lot to me in achieving my mission, which is really about connecting the world, connecting people through the power of communication and cultural intelligence. If you're feeling particularly generous, then I would absolutely appreciate it if you could leave me a review on your podcast platform, or if you're watching this as a video on YouTube. This would mean a lot to me as well in helping me achieve my mission. And then finally, thank you for watching, thank you for listening, and don't forget to subscribe so that you can make sure that you receive the next episode as soon as it goes live. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm Victoria Reynoldson, and I'll see you next time.